Ah, here we are again, boys. Back for the third ever podcast episode.
Mm,
Do you know what we're going to be talking about today?
Oh, we have an inkling, don't we?
a little bit.
I would hope so, at least, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about cryptids. Specifically, cryptids that have been noticed in Cornwall, because that'd be quite good for us to mention. But there's only so much of that, so we'll branch out a little bit from there. But I think we've got to cover the bases first. What is a cryptid, guys? Do you have any ideas, or do you want me to kind of take the helm?
I think you should have this one. You take this. We know, but
Oh, right. I guess
just explain it for everyone else.
Yeah. So the easiest way to describe a cryptid is they're monsters. Such as a great example is Bigfoot. They're like these creatures that are plausible to exist. There's like a level of evidence, but it's not been scientifically proven. There's no hardcore evidence that says, oh yes, this chupacabra is a definitive real creature. But there's also evidence that kind of suggests, well, it might not be just a dog, or it might not be just this or that. There is something perhaps really strange going on here.
Some hairy man.
For all we know, it could just be a hairy Mexican. We don't know. But yeah, so that's a great little way to start us off, I would think. And speaking of Bigfoot, because that's perhaps the most famous example of a cryptid,
Yeah.
we should go ahead and start with the story about the day Bigfoot stalked workers in Cornwall. I know.
Wow.
So, yeah, I never heard about this before. In my whole life of living in Cornwall.
Yeah,
I've
it's
never
so
heard
strange,
about it,
right?
but-
So let's dive right in. So, the British Bigfoot Research Group says sightings of mysterious beasts and wild men are quite common in the southwest, which I suppose with giants and pixies and stuff like that. I suppose that's reasonable. So, this is how the story goes. It was a copper-coloured creature about 6 foot 5 inches tall. A scarred witness has told his account of the day he came face to face with Bigfoot in a forest in Cornwall. The existence of the large humanoid, also known as like a Sasquatch or a Yeti, has often been dismissed, but decades of sightings from the southwest to the Highlands even, suggest that Bigfoot or wild men could be roaming the British countryside. The terrifying event took place about 20 years ago in the St. Morgan area near Newquay. A local man explained how he spotted Bigfoot in a woodland area after the creature had been watching him for hours. And then the story was shared, blah, 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 blah. The spotter, who remained anonymous, wrote, I realised I may have seen the creatures that you talk about years ago when I was working. I'm kinda in shock to tell you the truth, so I was unsure whether to get it in touch or not. I used to live in Devon and Cornwall, little village called St. Morgan. I was unsure what to write, as I wanted to say I've only seen one of those creatures you see for sure, and I think there was another one with it, but I only clearly saw one. While I was out making cages in wood for my boss's pheasant hunt, just outside of St. Morgan, I used to hear wood knocks all the time down there, and I wasn't really sure what it was at first. My boss said when I asked him about the noises and the thing I saw, and he said, oh yeah, we call them woodwoses. Woodwoses? Have you guys heard of
Never heard of
woodwoses?
the term woodwoses.
I want to say I've
I
heard
really
it.
can't say I've heard that word before.
No, that is like super
Not saying
specific.
it,
Woodwose, okay. It was about 20 odd years ago that it happened. I was in my early 20s, maybe 22 or 23. The young man was working in a field outside of the village when the incident happened. The only way I could describe it is that it was wooded all around with steep hills, but with a field in the bottom, he wrote. My old boss used to keep pheasants and other birds up there. People paid him to shoot on his land. He and I were up on the side of the hill on the far edge. I remember climbing through vegetation and trees. Anyway, I was talking to him about the pheasants and birds, and afterwards, me and another guy and his daughter were there to finish off the work. We were left alone. I remember getting finished and hearing a wood knock about 30 yards away. I couldn't see anything. I looked at them and they looked at each other and said nothing, so we just carried on packing up. It started again louder and closer and made me jump. Once again, they didn't say anything. They just carried on working. I was kind of thinking perhaps it was a woodpecker, but no. The group was sharing a van which was too small for the three of them, so when it was time to leave the field, the man stayed behind. This is when he saw Bigfoot. I had to wait to get picked up later, he continued. This was the reason I stayed. I couldn't make out where the sound was coming from. I could still see the edge of the forest where we had been before when I had heard it earlier on. I waited on the edge of the forest and I could hear rustling in the bushes. I looked, but I couldn't see anything, and then I guess my eyes adjusted and began to focus because I saw a face. This face was looking back at me, and there were clicks and whistles everywhere. I don't know why I still wasn't sure what it was. I walked forward to try to have a better view, then it stood up. I don't know why, but I just felt it was not fully grown. It was a male about 6 foot 5 inches tall. You thought it wasn't fully grown, and it was 6'5" tall. That is terrifying. It was kind of copper color, and it looked right at me. It was gone in a shot as I heard my old boss's Land Rover returning it to collect me. When he got into the vehicle, the witness was lost for words and remained silent. His concerned colleague asked him what was going on, and so he said, "Has anyone ever said anything about a Bigfoot here?" "Oh yes, we call them woodwoes." "Just leave them be." Just nonchalantly, be like, "Oh yeah, we see Bigfoots all the time," and then nobody's spoken about it.
Surely one of those people would have said, it would have come out in the media or something.
Yeah, you know what I mean. That's
pretty fascinating.
Crazy.
Or there's no photo evidence of it. You would have thought 20 years ago they'd still have decent cameras.
It didn't say he took any pictures of it, but apparently there's a whole British Bigfoot society. So I mean, there must be some evidence, pictures, videos that one of them must have. You know, if there's a society of these people in Britain, there must be some kind of merit towards it. You know what I mean?
There's like stuff like this as well. All like myths, and so there must be like a root point or something that started it.
Yeah.
And it kind of seems plausible that there could be something like that.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't there?
Yeah. I mean, wild men, I could totally understand that. I mean, I'm not saying it's like an everyday occurrence, but there are some people who kind of, especially like kids who get abandoned in the woods or, you know,
live off the grid.
Yeah, exactly. And they turn feral and things like that. So it wouldn't be immensely impossible for a wild man to maybe just be 6'5" and maybe just incredibly hairy and shit. I suppose it's possible.
Or it could just be like a kind of primate kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like which is why I don't understand why people kind of don't believe in Bigfoot. Some people, because all it is really is just a primate. And like still nowadays, like scientists are like, you know, discovering new species of, like there was a new species of whale like hadn't been discovered before. So why couldn't there be a new species of, like, you know, primate or
yeah. It's reasonable, absolutely reasonable. I think then there's a bit more fluff. Let's see. These strange creatures are even now supposed to inhabit the wilder moorland areas of the counties of Somerset, Devon and Cornwall. Savagely gored pet cats and dogs, sheep and other farm animals, and strange howls in the middle of the night have been reported in the last 10 or so years on the Quantock Hills, Exmoor, Dartmoor and Bodmin Moor.
it's like Crantock Hills?
Quan.
I thought you just had a problem with your speak.
No, yes, it's not Crantock, it's Quantock. It's probably not how you pronounce it. But yeah, the woodwoses, or wild men of the woods, could be Bigfoot's British cousins. They have been spotted in the past in Dorset and Suffolk even. 2 years ago, a man reported that he had previously seen a Sasquatch-like creature walking in a field just 10 miles from Bristol. Look at that, there's still more stories about Bigfoot.
That's crazy. I'm very surprised, like, I haven't heard this before.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty big.
I'm super curious about woodwoses now. I mean, I don't really know anything about that.
We're going to have to look more into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And definitely, because St Morgan is not that far away at all from here.
We could always do one of those...
Or even Bodmin Moor. I mean, you've got like the beast of Bodmin. Well, there's obviously also now potentially the Bigfoot of Bodmin.
Yeah,
I mean,
it could definitely like exist though, couldn't it? Because the moors are huge. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many places which have kind of, I guess, like, you know, a way less unexplored. And I'm guessing with these woodwoser things, they're quite easily startled and, you know.
I mean, as
they're probably not
any
gonna get
wild
anywhere
creature
near-
would probably be around here.
I'm sure if
you
they
know?
don't want to be seen, they probably won't.
They won't.
Won't be seen, yeah.
Exactly. They'll
Yeah.
either be really careful, or they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to fuck off now." It's just what they do. Any wild animal would. So I totally get that. It's interesting because it reminds me of this other story, which we'll probably talk about in the next podcast because we're going to do supernatural and paranormal. But there's like the in the Ilkley Moors up in the north. There's these rumors about, like, that's where a lot of UFO sightings happen. Is Ilkley Moor. So I mean, there's just something about moorlands, but I think it's because, you know, they're usually very vast and open and they're just wild and free and shit. So it's a great place to, you know, do any bizarre activities or have, you know, strange creatures or abductions and stuff. That just seems to be prime target. Or if you're in the States, the opposite is true, where it's like, oh, okay, well, it's still going to be vast and open, but it's going to be like desert, rocks, or Skinwalker Ranch and stuff like Utah
It's all
and
those
things
similar
like
places,
that.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all big and open and vast. And
Exactly, and there's like almost nobody around, so it's like, you know, they can just kind of take their pickings and then bob right off. And yet the Chupacabra, he'll attack like any amount of animals.
That's a strange one, isn't it? Because I've heard things like that, and it literally sucks the blood dry out the animal.
That's right, yeah. The what is it, bloodsucker, the goat sucker, or something like that. I forget what it stands for, but yeah, it's It's just the strangest thing. Some weird little feral creature that basically just sucks the blood out of, animals, and it doesn't even really do anything else with them. It just sucks out the blood, and it bobs off, and that's crazy to think about, absolutely crazy. Chupacabra, man.
And they're reverting back to the old, what's it called? Wahooly. What was it?
The woodwows.
The woodwows, yeah, that's it. Really intrigued by that.
Yeah, I'm quite intrigued by that too.
Have to definitely explore. But then, what would your reactions be if we did go exploring and you saw something like that? Would you want to run?
Well, I mean,
I'll be grabbing the cameras and I'll be fucking.
I mean, Anthony would. To be fair,
he would just scarper off with the.
That's true. He'd be like, "Wait, brothers, I'm
coming."
Do a sugar rush run.
I'd have to try my hardest to get video or photo proof.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that. I would love to get, especially with the GoPros or a nice camera. It would be great to get good
we'd have
proof
to look
of
into
something.
Imagine capturing something like that.
It would just be beyond shocking because then let's say we went out, maybe we weren't even looking for something strange, but we encountered something strange. We had great pictures or video of it. We had something astounding, like great crystal clear quality. We're like, it's so obvious to us what this strange thing is. It sounds exactly like this Bigfoot or the woodwows or some cryptid that isn't really real, quote unquote. And then the next thing that happens is you try to share it with people, you try to put it out there, and then people start going, oh, well, it's got to be fake. It's that. They immediately go straight on the attack, don't they?
Then I wouldn't know how you'd go to disprove it, but
yeah, that's true.
I try to live an honest life and try and be honest. So if someone's going to say that or decredit any of my work,
he'll meet you in the streets.
We'll meet in the car park.
You have a fair point because obviously, like I've mentioned before, I've had experiences with like paranormal stuff, and there's like a lot of people who are just like, "Oh, that's absolutely bollocks."
Exactly right.
But
what do you do?
But then
at the end of the day, you just got to stay open-minded.
Yeah, but absolutely.
I'm also now like if someone says, "Oh, that's never happened," or like, "This isn't real," that isn't real. Like you said, keep open-minded. Kind of lose my train of thought now. But it's just kind of at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't care about what anyone else thinks, you saw whatever you saw, and
you just
other people that believe it,
are in that same frame of mind.
But I know what you mean. Though, if we were to get a photograph of that,
it's then hard to prove completely.
You'd have to take swabs and
exactly. Suddenly, an investigation might happen. If you're lucky, you get the investigation happening. But then, what if they find nothing?
At the same time, I'm trying to document it. I always keep bags.
The thing is, though, do you reckon you'd have you'd have to be so prepared? You'd have to have a camera in your hand, ready to take the photo. Because I guarantee, if you saw that thing, you'll probably just freeze and be like, "What the?"
Well, that's why a great reason we have GoPros on us most time. Just go.
So you can wear them on your body and
exactly. In which case, let's say, we're getting ready for something. It's okay. Oh, we hear a strange one. Oh, just get it rolling. We don't have to do anything. Then, as long as we're like looking at it, it captures it anyway. That's another reason why I love those. That, and I mean, you don't want to be carrying a camera while you're going up and down ladders or climbing and shit. I mean, that's just too dangerous.
Like I did in the other day when I had to carry the LED. That was quite difficult. So if I had it
just strapped on or something, it'd be so much easier. If we could just strap on as easy as you want, I would love that. I'd absolutely love that. But
that's the thing with those LEDs; they are built for GoPros, so you can use them on the attachment without having the GoPro.
This is just sounding like a plug for GoPro now, isn't it?
I mean, we're not sponsored. Now, if GoPro would like to maybe talk about sponsorship, my email is nathandooling@gmail.com, and you should totally hit me up because we'll definitely do some work.
I
think what would be really cool is to get sponsored by GoPro. Thank you. And then if we could go out and prove all
through GoPro, I think GoPro would love that.
Real.
But the only thing that GoPro do not do are night vision cameras.
Look, we can figure out the complicated shit. That's fine.
That's the only thing I'm missing out of the kit.
We could just buy a massive, huge floodlight and you could just walk around with it.
Because it'll still be great quality. And then even if we have to chase after the thing, we'll have over 100 frames per second on these GoPros. It'll be nice, smooth action. It is designed for these chases when we're possibly going to get mauled. But it's fine. We'll just leave out that detail. It's fine.
I'll still leave the camera rolling if I was getting mauled.
Exactly. If one of us dies, not saying that lightly, although it sounds like I am. If one of us dies in the field of duty, as long as we had some good shit and we had a good time, then I think that was worth it.
Yeah.
Especially if we can prove something super strange out there is actually real. That alone is quite.
I wonder if we'd be knighted.
Maybe.
Or, you know.
We're chucked in the loony
That would
bin.
be quite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we came back, like, all hyped up, oh my god, we just see.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Bring in the Badlands boys, the ones who discovered that Bigfoot is in fact real and British.
Chuck them in the loony bin. That's it.
So as Dan, Nathan, and Anthony get knighted because we've discovered Bigfoot. Other people have done amazing things.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, what have you guys been knighted for? We discovered Bigfoot, mate.
Yeah.
Just down at the pub.
We're going to have to, like, perhaps what about if on our Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, if we put up, like, a little poll to see if anyone's heard of this Cornish cryptid.
I mean, that
And then
is
if
so
anyone's
strange,
got any
right? Who would have
proof
thought a
or-
Bigfoot sighting in Cornwall?
Yeah, I want to hear more about this.
Yeah, it's.
And now,
I mean,
now I'm a little bit worried because we live right in a little woodland, a big open land kind of down there.
we have a lot of walkers coming through here. I mean,
Okay.
any one of them could be Bigfoot. We don't know.
And tell you what,
I'm disguised.
sometimes at night I'm out there on my own. You can hear some weird.
Noises.
Yeah, you can't really put a name on the noise, but there is.
I know what you mean.
Sometimes
Every
you
time I walk around the back after doing laundry or whatever, and you have to walk past the little footpath or like the dark side of the moon.
The moon.
No,
It's the
the
dark side
dark
of the
woodlands. Like, I always feel like I'm gonna just get a glance. There's gonna be two like red eyes or
Yeah.
something. Just
Or you're just going to hear a rustle in the trees right next to you. What was that?
I
You're going to see something just shooting. Oh, shit. Yeah, no, I totally feel you on that.
But then as well, because would then the owl man relate to being a cryptid? Because
Yes, the Owlman is even on this.
it's on your schedule.
Which, I mean, we're not going to really cover a whole lot of him because we've already covered him. But, I mean, another reason why he was labelled as the Owlman is because a lot of barnyard owls like to hang out around church towers, which is a big reason why they were like, oh, well, what do we call this strange flying creature? So they're like, oh, well, you know, he's kind of like a barnyard owl. He hangs around these church bell towers. Let's call him the Owlman. So that's the reason why he's called the Owlman, because owls hang around church bell towers.
So he don't have big wings. And
I don't know. I mean, as the report said, you know, it looked like it was a giant creature with wings and like glowing eyes and stuff. But I mean, you know, that alone only tells you so much. It could just be any crazy flying beast. Because I mean, you've got like I said in the States, you've got the Mothman, which also was a giant beast with wings and glowing eyes. But where the fuck did they come up with the Mothman? It's because he chased lights. That's why. So they called him the Mothman. It's just some names are really, really dumb. Which is a shame. But yeah, I mean, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Right, we'll move on to the next cryptid we're going to talk about. Another Cornish one. So so you guys know obviously about the Loch Ness monster, right? I mean, everybody's heard of Nessie. You know, it's a giant plesiosaur in the lock up in Scotland and stuff. So Cornwall has their own sort of a sea giant. Let's see if you guys have heard of it. Its name is Morgower. Do you guys know Morgower?
I think I recognise a name.
So it means sea giant in Cornish. So it's a Cornish word. That alone is great. So it's a plesiosaur-like cryptid that lives in Cornwall. It has been photographed, even caught on tape. First sighted in 1906, various theories have been proposed for us to identify this sea serpent, ranging from a hoax or mistaken identity to the suggestion that the creature is a surviving species of plesiosaur, or that it is previously undiscovered species of long-necked seal. Long-necked seal.
This is where
How
it
long a
gets,
neck must that seal have?
Yeah, for real.
Because you think of like man has gone to the moon, gone into space. He's explored most of the world, but sea.
The ocean is so unexplored.
Exactly. So
Isn't it?
you don't know
5%
what.
or something?
Yeah, just like a tiny amount. I mean, there's
Who
so
knows?
much in the
There
depths.
could be.
I suppose it's plausible. So we'll talk a little bit about its. Let's see. In the absence of a carcass or a living specimen, blah blah blah. Oh, no, that's just about eyewitness accounts. Okay, so let's talk about some of the sightings. 1876, a sea serpent is allegedly captured by fishers at Gerrans Bay. 1906, sighted off Land's End. 1975, two witnesses claimed to see a humped figure with stumpy horns and bristles in its long neck, holding a conger eel in its mouth. Okay, oh, here we go. 1976, Mary F., we even have a name, sent two photos of Morgower to the Falmouth Packet. She said it looked like an elephant waving its trunk, but the trunk was a long neck with a small head at the end, like a snake's head. It had humps on its back which moved in a funny way. The animal frightened me. I would not like to see it any closer. I do not like the way it moved when swimming. Neither Mary, F, or the negatives have ever been traced.
What? So the photos have never been...
That's what apparently with
she sent them in and they were like, well, no, that will scare everybody off the bay. So they won't go in the sea, they won't go fishing.
Maybe.
So,
because,
you know, it's one of those conspiracy things, you know, it's...
Yeah.
You
Conspiracies is a whole different podcast
we can
topic.
Conspiracies.
Oh, we can do if you really want us to, we will do that. But you got to let us know, okay? If one person tells us to do conspiracies, we'll jump on that train.
But no, that's really interesting. That.
Yeah, there's more.
Oh, okay.
1976, Tony Doc Shells claimed to have photographed the creature lying low on the water. He mentions stumpy horns and describes the body of the animal 15 feet long.
Whoa.
1985, report of the creature during holiday. It should be noted that Mrs. Walden was watching her husband swimming in the sea when she noticed a large silhouette with a long neck. 1987, a diver sees a neck with a long neck. What the fuck does that mean? It says sees a neck with a long neck rising 1 meter from the sea. Oh, and then the video one, 1999, tape of unidentified animal on the sea. Last sighting of Morgower, along with his possible death, because he hasn't been sighted in 15 years.
Oh wow.
Well, I guess now it'll be 21 years. Jesus, that's crazy. So, I mean, for all we know, it could have been something, and maybe now.
Have you seen the video?
I have not seen the video. I'll see if I can find the video, though. I don't know where we'd find it, but I will.
That's very interesting.
I'll look into that, and I'll if I can find it, I'll put it up on our Facebook so everybody else can see it too, because that's quite interesting. If I can find out more about that, that's
But
crazy.
it sounds like they're popping up everywhere because obviously you got the Loch Ness, but then there was another, I think 1 or 2 in Ireland.
Oh
But
right.
yeah, because apparently there was it was a World War II. I think it was like a German World War II submarine, and it was going doing its thing under the sea, and then apparently I think got attacked or something by the sea monster, and it was lost. I think maybe a couple of these soldiers survived, and all of their reports when they got back, 'cause obviously they had to report what happened, and a lot of them were saying that there was this massive sea creature with this big long neck and big kind of frill spines along its back.
Oh right.
Yeah, so if there's that one up in Ireland, there's one in Scotland, Loch Ness, and then
and then there's the Cornish, Morgower.
Which again, like we said, how the sea is so unexplored, only about 5. I don't know if that's exact or right, but it's a very little amount of the ocean has been explored.
It's quite true.
And they're finding, like we said earlier, new species of like whale. There's new species of fish, like.
Shark.
So that's very plausible. It could be.
Yeah.
And again, something we need to go and try and find.
That'd be quite fun. Go on up.
We'd have to get a boat.
Yeah, we would have to get a
So
boat.
if someone wants to lend us a boat,
We'd probably also want to talk to some fishermen and see if they've seen anything strange at sea. You know?
Yeah, that's good.
That'd be quite cool hearing some fisherman tales. I tell you, because I bet some of them might have some really interesting encounters that even they're like, oh, I don't know if that was fucking real or not. But if they would like to share it, that makes some great stories. You know what I mean? That'd be amazing.
So yeah, if anyone has any more information about that, let us know.
Please let us know. We just want to know interesting things. Okay? I can only find so much research, especially when I'm stuck in lockdown and I can't talk to other people. So the next one we're gonna talk briefly about, because we've kind of mentioned the birth of why Cornwall is called Cornwall, with the Cornelius fighting this giant and knocking him off of Plymouth. So I found out the name of that giant. The name of that giant is Gog Magog, or Yajuj Majuj, which is a satyr. Or satire? I don't know.
I think I've heard of Gog Magog.
Yeah, so it's not the first time he's been mentioned. He's also in the Quran and a couple of other different places. Yeah, so weirdly, I don't know if it's maybe just a specific name that is very popular in other places, or maybe it's all the same creature or something. I'm afraid I don't know that much, but it's a half man, half animal hybrid or creature with demon-like appearance, and yeah, interestingly enough, when you go through and there's a whole bunch of different stories about Gog Magog, which a lot of them don't really relate to what we're talking about. But then yeah, apparently he was also one of the giants who led a big giant rebellion against Cornelius and stuff like that. And Cornelius fought him at Plymouth and threw him off the cliff and won Cornwall. Yeah, I don't know how exactly true that is, but it's cool to know that he had a name, Gog Magog.
Yeah, I mean, it may have been like exaggerated. It might have been.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's probably just two really tall guys, different villages. So
yeah, one was Gog and one was Magog. And they're their brothers Juge Majuge or whatever, you know. I mean, what can you do, right? There's also the talk of like alien big cats, but I mean that's still talking about
big cats.
Yeah, so that's still talking about like the beasts of Bodmin Moor. It's basically it's not like cats from outer space. It's just like strange big cats in places they're not supposed to be.
Oh, like alien,
yeah. Which also a lot of it talks about like they'll be like black in form and they can like disappear real quickly and stuff like that. So they do things that are similar to cats, but at the same time they're also doing things that are really strange and probably not possible. And it's like, oh, hang on a minute, you know, he was here just a moment ago, now he's already disappeared. That's quite strange. Which we could talk about that, but we've already kind of covered the beast of Bodmin Moor. We don't really need to do too much about that. Another one I do want to talk about, though, is the Barnacle Tree. Now this one's quite strange, right? Because there's not only quite a bit of merit and truth to this, but there's also pictures that I have.
Okay.
So this one's quite interesting. So the barnacle tree was a mythical tree believed in the Middle Ages to have barnacles that opened to reveal baby geese. The story may have started from goose barnacles growing on driftwood. The legend of this tree was of great antiquity, and although Albert Magnus in the 13th century denounced it as false, the tales of this tree were popular among herbalists up until the 18th century. So we'll kind of skip a bit of that history because we don't need to hear too much about all that. It's not very important. So we're going to go to the year 2011, so not even all that long ago.
Okay.
Beachgoers flock to a British beauty spot today to catch a glimpse of an unusual barnacle tree sea monster, thought to have been washed up by Hurricane Katia. The writhing mass of seaweed tentacles and barnacles, which measured around 40 foot in length, was thrown up onto jagged rocks off of Bude, Cornwall. Made up of goose barnacles. The long writhing stalks, or pendulates, tipped with shells, are normally found in the ocean depths, but were washed up clinging to this Everglades tree trunk. Goose barnacles, which measure around 4 centimeters, attach themselves to driftwood, ship hulls, and other floating objects. The unusual object was washed ashore at Crackington Haven, Bude, having spent months being buffeted around at sea. Balanced across the black rocks, the barnacles hang like strings of pearls from the sea smooth trunk, creating a sea creature sculpture. That's insane. I mean, and then there's a couple of accounts. There's a guy who's like, oh, it doesn't look like a tree that's native to this country, that's for sure. Certainly makes for an unusual sight. It must be 40 foot in length and is a beautiful sculpture. It suddenly appeared during the spring tide.
So it was like basically a tree which had been
Covered
into the ocean, drifted off, and then covered
in goose barnacles. But the tree was not of British origin. So somehow it floated a very long way, which is why they believe it's tied to the Hurricane Katia, possibly dragged from a whole other place. But I mean, the fact that it, you know, covered completely in goose barnacles.
That'd be amazing to see when that tree completely covered.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's some pictures of it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Some actual pictures of it back in 2011. The actual, and then you got a little bit more zoomed in here. And then,
Cool.
And then that's the original idea of the barnacle tree way back in the Middle Ages. It's just insane. I was like, that is so crazy that something like this, you know, they talked about something strange and similar way long ago. I mean, out of everything to come out of trees.
I've seen these kind of pop up before. I was on quite recently, literally this year, and there was some goose barnacles washed up. Before I knew about them, I was like, "What the hell are they?
Yeah,
they
like
look
massive,
so
aren't
odd."
Yeah, they do look very odd.
Yeah, and then I heard as well that they're like mainly in the depths and they're attached to bits and bobs. Yeah.
Okay. That's as far as that goes.
That's what I
right.
know about goose barnacles.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, there's definitely some very interesting stories. You know, and I mean, Cornwall might not have the largest selection of them, but it's certainly got its fair share of very interesting. Are you okay?
So I thought we saw something drifting past then. It's just a bit of dust.
Oh, okay, that's fine. no ghosts yet. No, we don't need to be terrified. Not today, anyway. Right. So, are there any other like strange stories that you guys might have heard of, maybe back in your youth or even recently? Any bizarre sightings of things, or?
I think that's all I've heard of, and more. Like a lot of them I didn't know before. I can't think of any more. I bet there's
I mean, there
I bet
could
there's
be
some
some,
other like,
right? Because
unexplained.
obviously you've got like the idea of witches down here. You've got I mean, obviously ghosts, but everybody's got a ghost. You know, so that's a whole nother podcast we're doing with the ghost stories and stuff. But what else besides witches and things? You got like mermaids, sirens, things like that, giants. There's definitely quite a few interesting tales based in Cornwall. Yeah, which makes it quite interesting, and then the ties to potentially like King Arthur, Merlin's cave, and things like that, which is
Like I said,
quite cool.
that'd be a good one to cover, like a big. We'll have to do a lot of research into that.
Yeah, no, I know Merlin's cave is attached to Tintagel.
Yeah, below it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And it's like a whole cave you can just walk straight through. It's like open to the public and everything. It's not dangerous from what I can tell. And then there's I think it's over by Bodmin Moor is the lake where Excalibur was believed to have been found. So clearly, just that whole area would just be insane to check out. You know what I mean?
If we were to do that, we'd probably have to spend like a couple of days up there.
Yeah, I mean, Bodmin Moor sounds interesting enough because I mean there could be cryptid sightings, there could be the possible Excalibur site. You know, I mean, there's weird stories of Bodmin Moor. If we found Excalibur,
imagine.
I wouldn't have thought we'd find that because
just get a magnet, chuck it into the stream.
Just get a magnet
fishing.
Fish it right back out. It'll be fucking fine, right?
Or I'm sure no one would mind. You know, National Trust would be fine if we got a selection of huge water pumps and just drained it.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds cheap. Yeah, that sounds easy enough to do.
No one's gonna mind.
No. What's that gonna do? That ain't gonna be no problem. So we don't know any other strange stories or fairy tales or nothing. Like what about Cornish pixies?
Yeah,
you guys know more about that?
There's been like there was a part where it was in my grand's old house. I remember I was young, and I don't know. It was kind of by like a little river and.
Very,
kind of spiritual down there. Quite like there was a vibe, like hippie kind of kind of vibe down there, and I don't know. I remember walking up this. Like, I'll have to take you guys down at one point. Me and Sophie walked it the other day.
I've got the photo somewhere.
Okay,
but no, it's this like little pathway which kind of goes up into like this little woodland, but then you've got these two like it's kind of like you're in between two walls. It's really tight to kind of fit down, but it's a pathway. But along there, like I heard tales and myths of there being like fairies and pixies and stuff like that. And I remember, like I said, when I was like young, when we were walking up there with my dad, and there was all of these plants like randomly just kind of like pulled out the ground, which I was like, oh, it must be pixies or something like that. And then. Yeah, just kind of seeing like little twigs and stuff arranged into little, like tiny little walls, or I don't want to say buildings, but
almost like decorations or something. Yeah,
but then obviously that could just be birds. So that kind of ruins that whole.
Yeah, I get you. Or it could just be other people, getting do a little fun thing, maybe for children especially, because I mean they've got the whole fairy trail up in Truro, where it's like got the little fairy doors on like some of these some of the trees and stuff. They've got like little decorations and stuff to make it look like fairies live in like a little walk in Truro.
Well, there was it wasn't in Cornwall, but there was. Oh God, I think it was maybe in 30s or 40s, possibly.
Yeah, of the lady having photos
of the fairies
in her back garden.
Yeah,
there's a lady who has photos of fairies in her back garden.
Yeah, but they've been proven that they weren't real.
Oh right.
Yeah, but there was a point where everyone kind of thought it was real, and there was a film about it. I can't remember what it's called now, but
so yeah, I can remember watching that one too.
Yeah, it's quite magical seeing these little fairies. But now I kind of I'm not too sure about fairies. I really don't. I don't.
Well, I mean,
I think dragonflies. Probably people saw dragonflies and were like, oh. Fairies.
It's golden fairies. I mean, who's gonna argue with that? Yeah.
I mean, we could go on a fairy hunt, but
I would be happy to do that if enough people requested that. But I'm talking like an absurd amount of people.
I mean,
you know what
I
I mean?
have to say, like, I think a lot
It
of
doesn't
my mates
sound like the most fun.
No, I don't think a lot of my mates would really like take that seriously if they were like,
No.
"What are you guys doing then?"
Oh,
"Going
hunting
fairy
fairies!
hunt."
It sounds like we're taking children out for a day or something, which, I mean, I'll be fine if we have children, but otherwise that just... I don't know, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, that sounds like a way to end up in jail. That's not hunting fairies. You gotta go off to the pub afterwards. Oh, what have you boys been up to? Yeah, hunting.
Fairies.
Hunting. No, don't say fairy. Just hunting. Just hunting. All right, we've done manly stuff today.
But yeah, fairies aside.
What about
witches
pixies? What can you?
Pixies.
Yeah,
I don't really know much about.
Because I know Cornish, like piskies, pixies. I don't know how you want to pronounce them. Are like a thing that's talked about, but I personally don't know.
Oh yeah,
a lot
I
about
don't really
them.
know much about them, to be fair, at all. I know I think it's Boscastle. That it's like really big on obviously like witches and pixies and all that, I believe.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah, they do like talking about witches a lot down here, don't they? Because in Tintagel, I think it's like a whole sorcery shop
yeah,
Yeah.
it's big down there, which kind of links
or a
in, I guess, to
museum
the
or
whole
something. Yeah.
King Arthur and wizards and
Okay.
witches.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
We did go to the Witch Museum down in Boscastle, which was really interesting and extremely creepy.
Mm.
Some of the stuff in there.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, when you really think about the idea of witches, like when you think about the whole dark arts, blood sacrifice side of it, which isn't a big side of it, but it's still a real thing that some people did. Like that's pretty dark and demented and stuff. And you might see like that satanic site we saw at Clicker where people would have pentagrams and they might do ritual sacrifices on that. Like that's pretty messed up and that's pretty spooky and scary.
Yeah.
Like, what makes you think that would do something? But at the same time, I mean, obviously they did believe it would do something. I personally don't know what. I don't know much about the dark arts, but
I don't really know if I want to know much about the dark arts.
No.
In case.
Yeah. In case something bad does actually happen. I mean, for all we know, there could be a merit of truth with it, and I don't really want to mess with that just yet because we don't know enough about it. If we had maybe a bit of training and education, I might be a bit more willing to fuck around with it. But at the same time, I'm not going to do like a ritual sacrifice at my home. I'm not going to do a sacrifice. Period.
I don't think we should play around
something.
like try and find out a recipe.
Now, a Ouija board, however, I would play with a Ouija board.
You would do that? Oh,
I would do that. That sounds hilariously fun. And yes, do I believe it could maybe spawn a demon into your home or maybe attach to you? I think there's a possibility. Absolutely. I think that could be a real thing, yeah. But I would still be willing to try it.
I don't know. I don't think I would. Because it's something you don't know what you're messing with.
It is terrifying,
It could be
isn't
like...
it?
Yeah, and I've heard... I don't know. Some people say, like, if you're calling out to spirits, if
anyone can answer.
Yeah, anyone can answer. So.
It's true. All you're doing is you're basically opening up the line, between the realm of the living and the realm of the dead, supposedly.
Yeah.
And anybody can probably see that and be like, well, I'll go check it out. Why not? Why would they not be interested in something different to their day? If there was a portal that suddenly opened, anywhere in the world, I think people would absolutely go fucking check that out. Of course, they'd all be nosy, wouldn't they? They'd be like, "What is this shit going on?" Of course, they're gonna go check it out.
I mean, I feel like we get really into that topic, but we're saving that, aren't we?
That's true.
But yeah, we could definitely start.
That'll tie into the next podcast.
About that.
Okay.
But yeah, again with that cryptids and stuff, I can't think of any more. To be fair,
it's just quite interesting the idea of cryptids. I think for me because it's the whole idea of people have seen something that they could not explain. Maybe they have pictures or videos, or maybe they have a level of evidence, or maybe they've been attacked by it, or maybe whatever the situation, and they truly believe it wasn't just a bear or a cat or some drunkard or whatever. They know it wasn't that because quite frankly, you can tell when it's not one of the obvious things that could have done it, and then your mind immediately goes to, well, what do I remember about it? Oh, okay. Well, in that first story with the Bigfoot, I remember it had like copper color hair. It was 6'5". I don't believe it was fully grown. There are very specific things he led us to believe that this is not something we truly understand.
I think that's because of the specifics.
Yeah.
Of what he described,
which helps give it a bit more truth to the story. Like for me, I'm like, he clearly, you know, in his mind, was looking at this thing, did not know what it was, and so he immediately was like, I have to find things I can completely remember about this thing to help me maybe grasp what it is.
But then the kind of like downside to that is the fact did he want to remain anonymous? Was it someone else who?
I don't.
Was that a different? I can't remember.
It might have been him. I've closed that story, so
I don't think he did.
We'll have to like definitely look more into that.
I'm wondering if there. I mean, because there was the sighting in Bristol, for example. I wonder if there were any other Bigfoot or woodwose. Now that we know woodwose is like a thing, I'm curious if there are any more sightings of that were down here. I might just give it a quick.
But just imagine. I'm just now trying to picture that, seeing this orange, coppery looking, hairy thing, 6.5 foot, staring at you. Your piercing eyes. You'd just be like, can you outrun it? Like, I wonder if it'd run off. I wonder if it would like go for you.
I'd think if you provoked it, like hit it with a stick. I think
I don't think that's a good idea to throw a stick at it. Or be like,
come on. I don't think it would play fetch with you, that's for sure. Yeah, so woodwose, or wild man of the woods, is a mythical figure that first appeared in medieval Europe and is comparable to the satyr in classic mythology. Oh, interesting. Okay. But yeah, they literally just look like some form of man, a humanoid creature. Some of them get a bit more hunched over, but yeah, some of them are very hairy, some of them are not. They're just a form of humanoid.
You got a rough picture on it?
I mean, of just like basic wild men and woodwoses, yeah. But it just gives you like a little rough idea. And then when you look up Woodwose Cornwall, all you get is a bunch of the similar stories about that same guy, the St. Morgan one, the Two Faces in the Trees, which is the one we heard about. Bunch of things in like Suffolk, Man Beast UK, which talks about the Cornwall story again. Bigfoot sighting in Cornwall was what we just read. More sightings in like Kent and things like that. So there's clearly some.
They're around.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not the same one. Maybe there's just other ones. I could still believe that, especially with I mean, there's what 7 billion people in the world. How do we know precisely? How many of them are actually civilized and doing this sort of stuff? Because I mean, there's islands still with like cannibals and people to have like no access to like fresh water and shit like that. There's still strange people out there.
But as well, going down the other route of these like woodwose, not just being like humans become rabid or anything like that. But if you kind of think back to like Cornwall stuff, it used to be so like riddled, but heaving with different kind of species of animals and
it used to be like much more like nature. Yeah.
So then imagine maybe if like a handful just managed to kind of survive, because obviously the numbers of them are going to be so low. No one's going to see them. You might get the odd sighting like those guys did see. So it could just be like a kind of species of animal which hasn't been discovered, and
that's what I would like to believe.
Become kind of extinct. And
there are parts of this earth that are inhabited by extinct or rare animals.
Like what was it, Land of the Lost? Kind of like that. Have you not seen Land of the Lost?
No. Sorry, for a minute I was thinking of Journey to the Center of the Earth,
that's
and I was like,
too.
I was like, that's not what he said.